Theodore Roosevelt once said, "The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, who at best, if he wins, knows the thrills of high achievement, and if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly."
I find that if you fill your day and your mind with productive things, the negative things have no space.
We've had professional athletes, we've had Olympians and championship coaches in our podcast. Today, we're going to have someone who, in my mind, has really excelled in a game of life. We found ourselves together in a recent event, and I was just completely enamored by his story. And it's a story that has been told already in public because when he relates when he talks about it, you will know the background. But I think there are still some things that a lot of us can learn, specifically the thrust of our podcast, which is how do we get through significant crippling adversity? How do we get through it? And then what are the lessons that we learn coming from that? To do that, allow our next guest, Mr. Louie Sangalang, finalist in The Apprentice Season 2. I watched that whole series and I was cheering, and I really thought he would have won that competition. But aside from The Apprentice, there is still a lot more to Louie's life that very few people know about. And I thought that it was perfect for the men and women in the arena to find out what we can learn from our next guest. Good afternoon, Louie. Thanks for being here. Salamat for for accepting our invite.
Nako, maraming salamat, Coach. It's an honor to be here. And thank you also for inspiring us that day. No? Nagkita-kita tayo, nag-usap tayo. Very, very good conversations and discussions, sir.
Yeah, I moderated a panel on what it takes to build teams, and we had Louie talk about his experience, and we had Dr. Marisa, di ko na maalala yung last name niya.
Ginto,
kasi.
sir. Marisa Ginto.
Ginto na kasi I know her from her previous, her before married name, Dr. Marisa Ginto, talk about the science naman. So it was a very good conversation. But today we're going to focus on Louie. And Louie, the way our podcast is structured is we always begin with giving our guests a chance to tell us about their story, about their life. How did you get to where you are today? We know that you are, there's so many things that you're involved with. Gaya sabi mo, ang dami mo nang pinanggalingan. But let us give us a synopsis of how your story began, just the way kwento mo nung ating event.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Coach. No, so I'd like to begin siguro my story. I'm the son of a geologist and a guidance counselor. Oh. So my dad is a geologist.
Geologist?
Yes, and my mom was a guidance counselor. And fortunately, yung career niya kasi, he became number 2 in the mining company before. Now, I tell this story kasi I've lived in several areas in the Philippines, no? Kaya pag tinatanong ako lagi, Louie, saan ba probinsya mo? I always tell them I'm Filipino because I've lived in the highlands, I've lived in the Visayas, no? Ano, Coach. Tapos my parents also grew up in different areas, no? My mom grew up in Baguio and Pangasinan. My dad grew up in Bulacan, Pampanga. Tapos the family is originally from Batangas. So that being said, you could say na parang yung buhay ko medyo marami akong journey, no? And I begin with my family life because yung parents ko kasi, because they were quite the achievers, professional achievers. Medyo mataas yung burden sa isang tulad ko na panganay. Alam mo naman, di ba, Coach?
Expectation.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So when you're younger, usually Filipino families, the parents, di ba, they expect you to be either engineers, lawyers, doctors, priests, di ba, in our cases as men. And I decided to take up physics, no? Nung
Wow, physics.
Physics, yes. But I decided to take that up. I was quite very young. No? I entered college just turning 16. So medyo pinagpala nung bata, but I wasn't able to really maximize that. And during my stint in college, because I felt that, my parents didn't respect or like my course, and parang ang laki ng burden sa akin, medyo nagrebelde ako. No? Nagrebelde ako nung college. I didn't finish my physics degree, something that, from time to time bothers me, because right now I'm taking up a master's in data science, but it bothers me from time to time because I felt that I should have taken that journey. And nung college ako, because I was mad at them, I purposely did a lot of, crazy, stupid things.
Rebellious stuff.
Super coach. Mahilig ako kuminom, diba? Mahilig ako makipag-away. And I found myself, very last year ko in college, I found myself, getting my ex-girlfriend then pregnant. So I had my daughter. And also finding out that I had cancer. No? It's not something that I should
At the
be...
same time.
That was almost a year after, sir. So the year after my daughter was born, I found out that I had cancer. Very rare form po. It's appendiceal cancer. No? And we found that out through appendectomy, because biglang sumakit yung tiyan ko, was Holy Week, my brother and I were drinking early in the morning, I had to go to the hospital. 2 weeks.
Inom ka ba naman ng early in the morning isa sa kalakit?
Nako,
Pero buti na lang.
yes, coach, it was a blessing in disguise.
Yeah.
And coach, nung time kasi na yun, I didn't realize it, but people were actually telling me, Louie, medyo alcoholic ka nung college ka. And it's a wonder. They tell you it's a wonder how you got through college. So I was speaking to my mom later on, no, kasi she's a guidance counselor. And sabi niya medyo high-performing alcoholic daw ako. May mga ganun pala before. Na parang lasinggero, pero you see to it that you're still kind of normal, no? But I wouldn't say that my life was normal. Kasi when I found out about it, and it was very rare, no, sabi ko sa parents ko, you know what, this is unbelievable. No, I just had my daughter. I'm graduating from college. We're not seeing eye to eye. Then suddenly this happens, and my parents were very concerned. But at the same time, because they could not connect with me that time, parang distant kami. No, we were so distant emotionally, physically as well. Coach, ako kasi, when my family was in the province, because my dad was, destino siya sa probinsya. I was already studying here, no? Yung sa magkalaban tayo ng schools, coach. But it's okay, it's okay.
No problem.
But noong time na yun, I was with LaSalle. And I basically parang had to live life on my own. So I had this very independent mindset na matapang ako. But you know what I found out about that disease, no? Parang I suddenly felt myself na parang cowering back to my family, no? For a while, parang emotionally, talagang...
Sila yung sinandalan mo?
Oo. Coach,
Can you repeat that again? Anong klaseng cancer yun?
it's appendiceal cancer, no? Cancer of the appendix.
Okay.
Cancer.
So literally, it got discovered when you had an appendectomy.
Yes, sir.
Because-
What happened, coach, 2 weeks after, kasi when you have an operation, they do a biopsy, di ba? To
Yes,
determine
of course.
what happened. Tapos, lo and behold, nandun kami sa hospital. Yeah, it's very serendipitous, no? I was in the elevator, I was in the lift, telling my parents, you know what? If I died today, sabi ko, I didn't know about this yet.
Yeah.
If I died today, it's okay. I have a daughter, my life is good. Then only to find out, sa harap ng doktor, sabi niya, Mr. Sangalang, you know why you're here? Sabi ko, no. Your parents have not told you. Sabi ko, no, not at all. Sabi, well, you have cancer. So, parang,
alam na ng parents mo.
they knew. Parang sinabi sa kanila, tapos, let's talk to your son. And, wow. Parang yung room, literally, parang nagdilim.
Okay.
I wanted to cry in front of the doctor, but I could not because, I was so shocked. Tapos on the way home, dun sa kotse, dun ako talagang medyo nag-crumble nga. And I told my parents, no, you know what? I'll just cry for one day, one night, and this is gonna be over. Something clicked no, in my head, nasabi ko, I need to understand what I'm going through, and I need to fight whatever it is that I have, because I have a newborn. Talaga nagbago yung mundo. And like I told nga the people in the talk, diba? Ang time na yon, uso pa yung dial-up, yung internet, yung medyo ingay.
Pag mag-connect ka sa internet,
Oo. Yes, coach. Yes, coach. Kasi minsan hindi pa nagko-connect, di ba? But I found myself the whole day and night, no, trying to really research on it's called acute adenocarcinoma of the appendix, no. So those were the keywords. Tapos I discovered that even if it's very rare, the chances kasi of people dying of colon cancer is, I think, a little lesser than other types of cancer. So sabi ko sa sarili ko, okay, may chance tayo dito. The classification is Jukes B or stage 2, later stage 2. So talagang may pag-asa. The doctor told...
So it was early enough. It was caught...
I think it was early enough.
Okay.
No.
Go ahead. Yeah.
But the doctor kasi, medyo progressive siya. No? Sabi niya sa akin, Louie, to be honest with you, we have to be very aggressive in the treatments. So sabi nila, kaka-opera mo lang sa appendectomy, pero kailangan natin tanggalin yung parts of your intestine. I'm not sure if it's large or small, but they took about a foot of my intestine. Wow. As a preventive measure. Kala ko okay na kasi binuksan ako ulit, coach eh. So my dad said, kaya anak, hindi na ako makain ng chicharon eh. Kasi when I saw that, it reminded me of the raw chicharon, di ba? Kasi they were telling me they took it out, and I saw your intestines. And sabi nung doctor sa akin, on top of this, Louie, you have to undergo chemo. So 6 cycles of chemotherapy. Then there was a very new form of treatment in St. Luke's that time. Radiotherapy. Wherein you go into this machine. Tapos it goes around.
Anong year to?
It was in 2000.
2000, Kaya medyo bago pa yung...
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I was 21 years old that time, 2021. So I'm now 47, so it's 15 years, a bit more after. And during that time, so it was 6 cycles of chemotherapy, 33 cycles of radiotherapy.
Wow.
I remember I was going into that, because it's in the basement. I was going into that area. And meron akong nakakasabay lagi na matanda. No? Nakakausap ko yung matanda. I was in my 20s that time, and I think the guy was siguro mga 60s. No? I asked him anong condition niya. I said, like, I have cancer of the esophagus or the throat. And he was doing another treatment, similar to mine, but I think it was, I forget what it was, but it's quite similar to mine. But he opted to take the, let's just say, the lower tech na version. I think because financially, and that's why I said that I'm very, very grateful to my parents, because sabi nga nila, naubos pera namin sa'yo, anak, pero okay lang, nabuhay ka.
Grabe, ah.
Oo. And I remember I was speaking to that guy for like 2 weeks, 3rd week, 4th week, di ko na siya nakita. And I found out that he passed away. And very interesting yun, kasi doon ko na-realize na parang ganun-ganun lang pala, na itong sakit namin, just, it betrays you. You don't know how aggressive it can be. So I said that kung ganun pa lang ka-aggressive to, and ganun ka, let's just say, surprising yung pwede mangyaring result, sabi ko, banatan ko na to. And while I was undergoing the treatments, kasi the chemotherapy sessions are done every month eh. Hindi pwedeng one time kasi ang nangyayari kasi sa chemotherapy.
So once a month?
Once a month po yung yung chemo. But sinabay na, I think after a few weeks, yung radiation therapy. What the drugs kasi do to you, the chemo drugs, is that it goes through your blood system. Tapos, the explanation to me was the drugs are going to attack the cancer cells that are, circulating within your body. But at the same time, initira din niya yung healthy cells.
Good cells, yeah.
So, ako parang, I remember I went back to school. My classmates say, Louie, have you been doing drugs? Sabi ko, no, not at all. Bakit? Because it seems like you've been shooting yung veins mo, pulang-pula kita namin eh. So, pag ganyan, very pale, then you can see the veins are very red. Time swollen. It's very painful eh. Mararamdaman mong gumagapang yung chemotherapy.
So did it debilitate you nung nagkikimo ka? Di ka the following day or ano? Di ka
Absolutely.
makagalaw?
100% ko.
Talaga?
Kasi yung condition ko kasi, so first yung chemo drugs, no? Second, yung radiotherapy, they were putting lead blocks sa akin so that the gamma rays, I think they're gamma rays, when they attack the cells in my abdomen, hindi tatamaan yung sensitive areas ko. So I had like lead blocks placed on top of me. In fact, may mga tattoo ako. Yung mga tattoos ko, yung mga markers where they would place these lead blocks. Yes. Now, to your question, sir, in one day, ang impact sa akin, ang nangyaring impact sa akin is that in one day, dumudumi ako mga 20, 30 times. Wow. I would be sitting, kaya nga sabi ko, yan yung trono ko eh. You know? I would be there and wala na akong may lalabas. Just, I think, parang bile na lang eh. Parang ganun, I would consider that. Na parang, ang sakit-sakit, no? Ang sakit, nakakapagod. So, hindi lang siya masakit, pero nakakapagod. You feel so drained. Then, it does something to your system eh. And psychologically, it's been happening to a lot of cancer patients. Sa akin, my eyes are very sensitive to light. That's why my room was always madilim. Tapos, I refuse to eat anything with onions. Yung mga, and garlic. Kasi pag may naamoy ka, parang naduduwal ka eh.
Talaga?
Yes.
So did you lose you lost weight? Kasi yung pinakita mo sa ano, di ba?
Yes, coach. That was part of the secret of how I lost weight. So, in college, no, I ballooned to 190 pounds. Wow. And I'm like 5'6". But I've always been athletic. I was part of I did track and field in Lasal before. I was part of the CAT, Corps of Officers. And nagulat na lang ako in college, bigla ako lumawo. Kasi nga sa kakainom, then I didn't take care of my body. I lost about, I think, 40 pounds that time.
So you got back to 150.
150, around 140 even. Tapos, sabi ko sa doctor, hey, doc, how soon can I start working out? So, sobrang excited ako eh. Sabi, well, Louie, you can't work out yet. Kasi, your body needs to recover. Diba? Coach, matigas ang ulo ko. So, unbeknownst to him, 3 months after my surgery, nag-weights na ako. And my doctor was saying, you should not have done that. When he found out, sabi ko, well, everything worked out fine. Sabi niya, no, but because you got operated on, Louie, you have to understand that we cut through your abdomen, right? If you exert pressure, yung tahi, yung sutures mo might open. And I didn't realize at that time, but I think he was right. No, he was absolutely right. But I decided to continue. Sabi ko, nagawa ko na to eh. So tuloy-tuloy ko na lang.
Bakit? Why did you insist on working out?
First, I felt that I had to recover faster. I thought
you looked at it as a way for speedier recovery.
Yes, coach. That's the first thing. Second, I did not want people to pity me. No. Pag sinabi kasi may cancer ka, di ba? Parang sabi, cancer, kawawa naman tong taong to. There's a certain stigma to it. Eh. And I wanted to prove to people na, hey, no way, I'm a cancer survivor, but you wouldn't think of me as...
Did you lose your hair? Did you wala kang ganong zip?
I did not lose my hair up here. I lost my hair there. Yes, sir. Because it was very focused on my abdomen. Eh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So dun po siya na nalagas ng konti. And because I refused to be how do you call this, defeated by the concept of being a weak person, di ba? Kasi may pride ako eh. Sabi ko, you know what? I'm going to take this further. No, all the things that I've been doing when I was younger, being an athletic kid. No, I was in several sports. Eh. My first sport was tennis. Then I did track and field. I did martial arts for a while also. I told myself, sige, babalik ako sa sports. Then nahilig ako sa... That time, usong-uso yung UFC.
Yep.
It was the birth of the UFC, MMA. Pride pa before the UFC. So I remember watching some VHS tapes of UFC that time. And I got into that, the martial arts. Up to the point we're in, on my second year of recovery and rehabilitation, one of my friends actually put up a promotion here in the Philippines. It was called the URCC.
Yes.
The Universal Reality Combat Championship. And he invited me to watch it. First time I was there, first match. Well, I was blown away by, action and ang sarap ng feeling na sabi ko, oh wow, I'm actually watching this live. Tapos people are cheering you on, no? So sabi ko sa mga kasama ko, you know what? Next year I'll be there. They were telling me, you're crazy. Kasi you just came from this. You're gonna do this. Tapos, lo and behold, no? The following year, I was there.
Pero you were a student, you were already working.
I was, that time, I was already working. No?
Okay.
Kasi anong nangyari, Coach, my last year in college was the time that I found out, right?
Yeah.
Noong time na yon, I was recovering. I focused on recovery. I focused on finishing my thesis and, trying to spend more time with my daughter. Then immediately after, the year after, dun ako nag-boost ng sports. And nung time na yon, I also started working, no? I remember my very first job, I was a club communications officer in Celebrity Sports.
Oh?
Celebrity Sports Plaza.
Okay.
I got there. And I did club events, no? So ang ginagawa ko, I would organize the events. I would produce them together with my artist and some people. Then I was also doing a lot of writing. No, I was doing club communications. No, the newsletter.
Mm.
And it was a very weird period in my life because initially I wanted to become a scientist. Kaya nga ako nag-physics. Di ba? Kasi yung pangarap ko na maging sundalo, hindi rin lahat ng pangarap ko I felt shoot down na magulang ko. Maging sundalo, maging scientist, ayaw. Tapos my mom, who was in the UP system that time, I told her, hey, maybe I could be a musician. Kaya what are you going to feed your family? So ang gulo ng time na yon, di ba? Then I finally settled on going into marketing communications because I had a huge interest in film that time and advertising. So sabi ko, sige, dito na lang ako. So I ended up not finishing my degree in physics, but instead going into a humanities course just so I could finish. And noong time na yun, Coach,
Magkalapit.
as in, sabi nga ng mga kaklase ko, Louie, mukhang pinasok mo yung course ng mga athletes because all the basketball players are in humanities. No? So, that's patrimonio that time. And akala ng parents ko, mag-law school ako because humanities was also one of the courses they could take. But unfortunately, I broke their hearts again. And yeah, I decided to take on that career in communications, PR. I thought that time kasi outgoing.
Yep.
Apparently not. No, I realized much later on that I was actually a huge introvert. And when I started working, tinuloy-tuloy ko lang yung martial arts ko. So it was kind of my hobby.
Parang hobby mo. Yeah.
Hobby. It started as a hobby. Then after I left Celebrity Sports, I joined a microfinance bank. It was the very first microfinance thrift bank. In fact, it was mentioned during the song of GMA. It's one of the initiatives that her government was kind of focused on. And nung time na nandun ako, it was a very good training ground for me. I was being mentored by a CEO who used to be with
And your job was?
doing marketing, sir.
Okay.
So I was doing research. I was doing products and services for this microfinance thrift bank. Unfortunately, something happened in the organization and nagkaroon ng, let's just say, corporate takeover. And it folded. And everyone in leadership resigned. And I found myself also leaving the organization. Kasi nag-alisan na yung mga boss eh. When I left that, I briefly joined a BPO. No, I joined a call center, but I didn't really like the job. No, I said there's got to be more to this. And during that time, dun na yung pumasok yung martial arts. So I participated in that competition, and lo and behold, I started enjoying it.
URCC.
URCC, no? So I became a full-time athlete that time. Nung naging MMA athlete ako, coach, fortunately, we were ahead of the game kasi. So we focused on strength and conditioning, and nutrition namin maayos. Then we had siguro the best techniques, no? We were ahead of the game in jiu-jitsu and wrestling and everything. So sabi ko, okay, parang top of the food chain, di ba? Biglang may nagsabi, hey Louie, are you interested in joining this reality boxing TV competition? So sabi ko, sige, laban lang, di ba? Laban lang. Then I decided to do it full-time, and I joined the very first boxing reality TV competition in the Philippines called Kamao, no, in ABS-CBN, which was hosted by Manny Pacquiao, Vina Morales, and si Binoy, si Robin Padilla. Yeah. Hindi ako pinagpala doon, coach, kasi I was a martial artist, no, through and through. I was not a boxer. It takes a certain level.
Yes, iba yun eh.
Ibang ano siya. Ibang labanan siya. So I got into, I had my very first professional boxing match there, and umabot naman ako ng quarterfinals before I got eliminated. Then from there, I went back to corporate. I recall kasi during that period of time, so I did that boxing show. Then I was on my 3rd or 4th year in MMA, and I don't really understand how I made it work. Because hindi naman malaki yung kita ng professional athlete at time.
Yeah, I was just going to ask you that. So, paano binubuhay sarili mo? Yeah.
You know what, coach? I think that that time I was able to build a bit of savings from my previous jobs. I did not really have a very high standard of.
And but you were supporting your daughter.
I was. Yeah, I was. I was giving giving what do you call this allowance.
Yeah.
You know, just to also give a bit of context. No, the mom and I were not together, and yun din yung isang driver noon eh. Kasi we had a falling out that there were times that I felt, I mean, in hindsight, I felt that she was taking my time away from my daughter. Kaya, if you talk about adversities, diba? I mean, partly, I guess it's my fault because I did not present myself to be a responsible father. And I think it's also partly because she held me, kumbaga, she had so much contempt, diba, sa akin because of what happened with our relationship. So that was also a driver for me, no? And that's the reason why sabi ko dun sa dad ko. I remember my very last fight, he spoke to me after 3 years that, Louie, you're educated, diba? Nag-aaral ka in the schools, like, you have nothing to prove because nobody wants to fight you anymore, at least during that time.
Okay.
Diba? Sabi, why don't you go back to corporate, start working again, rebuild your career. And coach, ako, I still think about it until now, no? What life I could have had if I stayed.
Yeah.
Because all my contemporaries were fighting already in international. Like Edward Folayang was a few years younger than me. Mark Sangyao was my batchmate.
Okay.
Diba? So these guys, kung nagtuloy-tuloy ako, if I stayed the course, I would
have been in that level.
In that industry. Kasi kami yung champions nung time na yun, coach.
Yeah.
No? But one thing that I always parang recall and fall back on is the decision to go back because I wanted to heal my family. No, nung time kasi na yun, parang even that one, kahit nag-champion na ako, we don't care. Like parang I knew because I knew that my dad didn't care because for him, he didn't want to see me get hurt. Of course, he told me he's proud of me, winning all of these competitions, but he didn't want me to get hurt. And CTE is real, no? Yung concussions and all that after how many years? That's pretty real.
Tsaka later mo na mafe-feel yun eh, di ba? Di mo naman nalalaman, nag-cumulative yun eh.
Exactly, coach, di ba? Nakakatakot. And so I went back. Tapos, fortunately for me, Noong time na yon, so I had several stints no in different industries. Pumasok ko ng after ng martial arts. In fact, I joined ABS-CBN. I became a scriptwriter. And I was being... Yes. Yeah. So, I became a scriptwriter. I also got an offer to be part of, what do you call this? I think Star Studios, to do like events as well, because they found out that a background in events. I didn't take that. Then I briefly joined SM. I briefly joined SM as a marketing supervisor before I got pirated by the BPO industry, an industry that I thought I didn't want to be part of again. But I joined the BPO not as an agent anymore, but I did communications for the company. Ended up helping the BPO open different sites. So I was doing PR and communications, and a lot of employee referral programs for the sites that we had. That kind of served me well because it's a very interesting corporate journey, because after the BPO, I joined a casino very briefly for about a year.
Okay.
And nung time na yon, hindi ko kaya yung lifestyle kasi I was part of
all this time your cancer is completely
yes.
wala.
So
Recovered ka.
okay. It's a good thing that we talk about that, because my way of coping kasi during that time was to get myself really busy.
Okay.
So I don't think about these things. But I had my yearly checkup, my annual checkup, wherein they have markers, like they call the CEA test. I forget what it stands for, but it has markers that will tell you if it's high. It's an indicator that,
Meron.
baka bumalik. Baka bumalik siya. And in this regard kasi, Coach, I tell people, you know what? It's difficult for me to say that I am completely healed of cancer, because it can come back.
Yeah, the possibility always
Is there,
there.
right? So I tell people that I survived it. No, I survived it, but I will not tell people that I'm completely healed, because I don't want to have that false sense of security.
Okay.
And it happened to one of my office mates, 11 years. Breast cancer, free, wala, clean. Then all of a sudden,
Balik na lang. Really.
bumalik na lang, Coach. Nanghina siya bigla. Then after a year, she wasted away. I mean, she was quite heavy. Then when the last time I saw her, I visited her in her house in Bulacan. Parang sobrang tuyot na yung katawan niya. No? So it's an incredible journey if I look at it from the point of view of a third person.
I can just imagine living that life na, okay, dami mong ginagawa, but at the back of your head, parang nandyan yung, di ba? Or were there times where hindi mo na talaga naiisip?
Okay. So, Coach, yung tama kayo, absolutely right in saying that it's in the back of your head. And when I was in the hospital kasi recovering, remember, and I had the chemotherapy and radiotherapy sessions, I would be hospitalized then. During that times na I would go into these sessions, I would be left alone because my parents had their jobs, my brothers, my sister, they had school. Walang nagbabantay sa akin. And dadalawin ka lang, di ba, of course. But pag umalis na sila, the lights are off, mag-isa ka lang, you start wondering, these tricks in your head, parang, oh no, di ba? What's gonna happen to me? So I did this practice, na parang sabi ko, what's the worst thing that can happen? What if tomorrow is my last day? And I kept on doing that on a regular basis. I tried to do it. Initially, it was like once in every 3 days. I started to do that daily.
Every day.
Yeah, consciously challenging myself, asking myself. Until umabot dun sa point, and I think it was on like siguro the 3rd or 4th week, that I started to think, hey, it's not so bad. So what? Diba? Just carry on and keep living your life. Little did I know na parang it was a practice of, parang creating calluses in your head. I mean, good calluses, diba? Like,
Yeah.
Wherein you become maybe desensitized to the fear, but still conscious of it. No? Conscious of it, but desensitized.
It's not like you're denying it. Di ba?
Yes, sir.
Hindi naman. Alam mo nandun, pero okay. It's kind of mindfulness in a way.
Yes, sir.
You're just very mindful that it's there.
And coach, I started focusing on things that I can control. Kasi this if it happened tomorrow na bumalik siya, that's not within my control. So sabi ko, how I behave to this adversity, this illness, is what will define me as a person, no? And little did I know that also shaped my character along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Kaya, we don't sweat the small stuff anymore, di ba? So, sinasabi ko sa sarili ko, okay, as long as you're working, you're bringing value to the organization, you're building value, you're creating value for yourself and for your family, then everything's gonna be fine.
So, how did the apprentice happen?
Okay, so the apprentice happened because so when I left the casino industry, I joined an insurance company.
Okay.
No? And in that insurance company, I was very fortunate to have had several opportunities wherein I was given projects to deliver, and for the life of me, most of them naman deliver ko. I decided to leave the company. I actually left the company twice. The first time was to rejoin a BPO wherein my boss from the casino also joined. So para naglaglipatan, pinaalam ko naman dun sa presidente ng insurance company. Then I came back to the insurance company after I delivered my mission here. The second time I left was when I decided to take an early retirement at the age of 40. Kasi I promised myself And when I make promises to myself, I want to keep them.
Tinutupad mo talaga.
Yes, sir. The age of 40, I left. And I decided to start my consulting business, focusing on procurement. Kasi nag-specialize ako ng procurement. I became the procurement head of this insurance company.
And that's what you have until now, di ba? Your consulting business.
I have-
Up to now.
Yes, sir. I have a consulting. So I'm part of a startup that does project management as a service. I'm setting another startup wherein I'm going to do procurement services. The procurement services from my consulting, coach, convert ko siya into leadership and mindset coaching. And the reason I converted that was because people were starting to ask me about these things. After the apprentice, after the other stuff that I've been doing. So when I did the consulting business for procurement, I also started teaching in schools. And a year after that, I discovered this competition called The Apprentice. Nga. The competition was being produced by One Championship, which is the largest Asia sports
One FC, yeah.
Yes, in Asia. So I decided to try my luck. I didn't really think anything of it. And lo and behold, after a month, sabi ko, I wrote it off na. Sige, tuloy ko lang tong consulting. I have this teaching job anyways. So I'm good. So they got in touch with me and told me, like, you know what? We're interested in you. And we'll be in touch again. Nangyari to, coach, at the height of the pandemic. No. Nagkaroon ng lockdown. I remember this. I was consulting with the MMD and the World Bank. And suddenly, I was in this meeting with the MMDA where they told us, starting tomorrow, everything will be on lockdown. So we'll be in touch with you virtually. Parang ganun na nangyari. And a few months after that was when I got the call nga from One Champion. She said, like, you know what? We're interested in your profile. Then I didn't hear anything from them again. No. Didn't hear anything from them again after, I think, 4 weeks or after a month. By the way, they told me that, Louie, okay, you got in? So si Chatri was actually called me and I was super surprised. Like, Louie, you're in, you're going to Singapore and all that. And they told me I had to leave after a week. So,
Pero pan lockdown na ito.
lockdown to, coach. As in lockdown.
Oh.
So sabi ko, paano mangyayari to?
Yeah.
A week or 2 weeks, at most 2 weeks yata. So paano mangyayari to? they started emailing all of these letters, no? The letter from the Ministry of Labor, from the tourism.
Ano sila yung umayo?
Silang umayos, coach. As in, I had papers from 3 agencies in Singapore.
Singapore.
Then I had a letter from one championship as well. Kaya people were wondering, like, you're traveling at the height of the lockdown. Ito yung very interesting part dito. And I've never really shared this in public. So, nasa airport na ako, no? Ako naman, sabi ko, okay, hindi pa naman siguro magsa-start yung show, di ba? Wala na. Punta pa lang kami Singapore. So, I was there with all my papers. I had my ticket. No, it's ready to fly. In front of me walks this lady, very young lady, the business suit, and, dressed to the nines. Sabi ko, could it be? Sabi ko, could it be that she is one of the candidates?
Yes, okay.
Turned out that she was. Si Lara from Baguio. And she was. There were 2 of us from the Philippines. So, sabi ko siya nga, no? And then, chinika ko ng konti, diba? Sabi ko, oh, hi, so where are you flying to? Tapos sabi, I'm going to Singapore. Didn't tell me what the reason was, very, very guarded. And sabi ko, okay lang, di ba? Of course, I'm a stranger. Until the time na nakarating kami ng, what do you call it?
Singapore.
Hindi pa, sir. When we got to the immigration officer, no? Kasi di ba may agent? It was her first time traveling.
Wow.
It was her first time to fly.
Wow.
And to fly internationally. So, the lady, kind of didn't know what to do.
Gagawin, no?
Yes, she was a bit panicking, no? So, sabi ko sa kanya, you know what? Let me help you. Parang gano'n. Because I'm flying to Singapore also. And I think we're
Going to the same place.
Exactly. Naglabasa kami ng papeles ngayon. And we had the same exact papers. So, the immigration officer was very, of course, she was doing her job. Sabi niya, bakit kayo aalis? Lockdown. Gagawin niyo sa Singapore, di ba? Wala namang nangyayari ngayon eh. Then, sabi ko, well, we're going to be part of this show, this production, we're in this and that. Then when I mentioned The Apprentice, ang una yung sinabi, yung kay Trump. Sabi ko, yeah, it's something like that, but hindi si Trump yung CEO namin. It's one championship. And, ang tagal namin doon sa opisina. We were held, no? Ang tagal namin doon until we were able to convince her. We were able to convince her that we were going to go.
So, hindi niya tayo kayo pa yan.
Ayaw niya talaga, coach. Kasi she didn't see it as
lockdown naman. Kasi parang hindi man
Hindi siya
necessary. Yeah, hindi essential.
Hindi siya essential, coach. Tapos, but nilapag namin yung mga papeles. Ministry of Labor, tourism industry, one championship, and I forget there was also another letter coming, I think maybe from Andas, the hotel.
Okay.
Until pumayag na lang siya kasi nagtitinginan sila sa opisina, didn't know what to do with us. But we had sufficient paperwork eh. So finally, when we got to the boarding area, that's where nakahinga na nga yung kasama ko si Lara, started sharing stories. She shared that she was a single mom and she was doing this for the first time because she felt that it's going to progress her career and also had my own reasons. Then I told her, this is an amazing journey ngayon pa lang kasi it felt that this was already our first challenge of the competition. Sayang walang mga camera. Wala po. But I told her as well that once we board that plane and we deplane, basically sabi ko, we won't be talking anymore as friends, right? We'll be talking as competitors. And we were warned before flying on that plane that you're not supposed to talk to any of your competitors. Otherwise, they will ask you. No, there are very strict penalties, by the way, in the contract. No, let's put it that way. Wherein, if you use your phone, if you call someone, if you start, fraternizing with your competitors, they'll really come after you, and then for good reason. Okay. So that was the first challenge of the whole experience. Pagbaba namin, so nandoon pala kami sa airport, no? Yung mga ibang candidates nandoon. We didn't know that we were arriving on the same day. Immediately, they shuttled us to our what do you call this? Yung quarantine
Yeah.
area.
Yeah.
No? So sabi ko, saan kaya kami dadalhin? Sabi, okay, Mr. Sangalang, you will be booked in the Mandarin for your quarantine. Sabi ko,
Yes, ah.
swerte.
Okay, yeah.
Swerte. So, I was locked in the Mandarin for about 3 weeks, no, eating hotel food.
3 weeks.
3 weeks? 3 weeks nandun kami sa loob. I was expecting that, coach.
So, quarantine pa lang to before mag-filming.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
3 weeks of
mandatory quarantine, yes.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
ginawa ko, I knew that we were going to be quarantined. Nagdala ko ng mga libro. I brought books, self-help books, business books. I did research on One Championship. Parang tinignan ko yung organization nila. I looked at all the possible sponsors who might be participating in the competition. I was ready as hell. Tapos inside the room, I brought my skipping rope. You know, I was doing all my calisthenics. You know, okay, as an MMA guy, diba, you have a lot of movements you can do by yourself. So I was really, really ready. I was super ready. Only to find out na the first day na nandun kami, you know, I got so tense because nung nakita ko yung mga competitors ko, like one of them was like a Harvard graduate.
You were in studio? Ano?
Sir, dinala muna kami sa hotel. So all of us were
Hindi na Mandarin, iba na.
iba na po. So we were all billeted in one hotel, the sponsor hotel. We were given different rooms. But all of us were thinking the same thing. Like we were like trying to figure out who's in what room, right? Who is doing what. And the first day that we were there, ang bilis ng pangyayari. So dinala kami sa hotel. They told us, you know, just freshen up. Then we'll bring you to, you know, the briefing. Tapos they brought us to the boardroom, which was a room.
Yeah. Yun, nakikita na.
Yes. Huge table. Very intimidating table. Like Chatri and his right-hand woman was here.
Si yung girl. Oh.
Yes. Ni Harika. And it was so intimidating because aside from them, I would be looking at my other competitors and discovering their backgrounds, diba? Like I said, one of them was a Harvard graduate. One had her own business. Tapos yung isa was a former athlete. So varied yung mga backgrounds, and I told myself, like, how will I position myself here, right? I've had this very storied life. Iba-iba yung naging roles ko. Tapos I did martial arts. Well, yes, I was able to compete at a professional level, but I felt that I wasn't able to achieve, you know, the pinnacle of that sporting career. So I felt like an imposter actually that day. Sabi ko, I don't even know I'm here.
Imposter syndrome ka pala.
Oh. And then I was telling Professor Marisa about that too. So sabi ko, I don't think I deserve to be here until we started talking to each other na. And realizing na, uy, may mga weaknesses din pala yung mga tao.
Tao rin kayo. Tao
rin kami. And instead of having that approach wherein I would be, kasi usually pag combat sports, parang, asastig ako sa'yo eh. Di ba? May dating talaga na kailangan. Unang tingin pala, art of war. You know?
Okay.
You see me, you're intimidated by me without me really intimidating you. But instead of doing that, I decided to take a different approach. No? First, I said like, okay, there's power in silence. I won't speak until, you know, I'm spoken to, so that I'm not careless with my words. But secondly, I will try to get to know each and every one of these guys.
What made you decide to take that approach?
Because all my life, coach, I've been trying to prove myself eh. Na parang ako yung magaling, ako yung matapang, ako yung marunong. But in this how do you call this? In this arena, when I felt that and I thought that other people were better than me, ang sabi ko sa sarili ko, maybe there's something that I can learn from these guys that would fill in yung mga shortcomings ko, yung mga gaps sa buhay ko. And I use that to my advantage kasi if I were able to tap into your psyche, into your knowledge base, no, and get something out of that I don't have, then that's going to add more value to me, right? That's the first thing. Second, the competition, while it seems like you are competing 1 out of 16, we have to always remember that we're leading teams. I was project manager for 3 projects.
Yeah.
Did successfully. And in order for me to do that, my team had to trust me. For them to trust me, I had to trust them first. May kasabihan yung black belt ko sa jiu-jitsu. Sabi niya na, in order for you to to be loyal to me, I have to be loyal to you first. Sabi ko, professor, we call each other professors eh. Black belts in jiu-jitsu are called professors. It's like a university, like a school. Sabi ko, professor, what do you mean? I don't get what you're saying. He's from the US, but I think he's Colombian or he's Latin American. Sabi niya, Louie, I have to be loyal to your dreams, to your hopes, to what you want to achieve in life. I have to understand you, have to value you, so that in turn you will value me. So it's giving yourself first, right? Before the person gives themselves to you. So I decided to take that approach. Na parang, I will value these people first. I will respect them. Though, parang let them lead also, di ba? Kasi people want to be, want to be seen. They want to be recognized eh. If you give that recognition to them, they will have ownership. At least that's my experience.
So I think we have to, I need to interrupt you there because two very important things are jumping out right away. First is, and a lot of leaders in organizations can learn from that approach where you don't need to be the smartest person in the room.
I agree.
If we're very honest, a lot of leaders, myself included, we have that tendency, diba? We want to, ako yung boss dito, I have the title or the rank, whatever. We always want to show who's the smartest person in the room. And a lot of times, especially in this day and age with the modern employees, that approach doesn't always work. In fact, most times it doesn't work. So that's number one. Number two, I always remind leaders when I get a chance to work with them, boss, job number one, forge strong trust-based relationships with your people, whether it's to build your teams or to be able to coach them. That's number one, because we cannot engineer, we cannot manufacture trust. Trust is reciprocated.
Absolutely.
So what can you do as a leader for them to feel that you trust them so that they in turn will reciprocate that trust to you? So you just explain that as a real life case study dun sa approach mo sa The Apprentice.
And you know what, Coach, I agree with you 100% because all of the things that I've learned, these things that I talk about, I learned them in martial arts eh.
Okay. Hindi mo yan nakuha sa libro, sa eskwela,
well, eventually, di ba, when you dig deeper,
Yeah.
you realize it teaches in business school, in business books, in self-help books. Pero yung una kong learning with this was that meron kaming kasabihan lagi. When you enter a gym, there's usually, most of the gyms now, they have it. There's a sign that says, leave your ego outside the doors. Di ba?
That's a good point na sinabi mo isa. Yeah. Continue, please.
Yeah. So you leave your ego outside the door because if your ego is there, the chances of you learning is going to be more difficult. Di ba? And that's because you have preconceived notions already of what's going to happen. Na alam ko na to eh. Di ba?
Correct.
Ano ba itong pinagsasabi ng taon to? Parang, yesterday's news, right? So you don't learn anything new. Unfortunately, if you have that mindset, tapos nagugulpi ka sa sparring, mas masakit. Kasi, di ba, isipin mo, alam ko na dapat to. Why could I get out of this move? Why am I being beaten by this guy? So that's the first thing. Leave your ego out the door. And to me, when I go into meetings, when I go into business meetings in school or in at the office, diba, I always tell myself that I want to be the dumbest person in the room because there's so much to be learned from other people, especially yourself and other executives, diba? Yung experience eh. I realized this as I grew older, yung parang stepping into the shoes of being a parent, of your, I mean,
your learnings along the way. Okay. Yeah.
So that's the first thing. Yung leaving your ego at the door so that you can accelerate your learning. What I do kasi, I tell this very simply to people. I unlearn the things that I've learned so that the learning curve flattens out, diba? Kasi na-absorb ko siya better. Walang biases as much as possible. The second point that you made regarding earlier,
Trust. Yeah.
the trust, no?
Relationships. Yeah.
So I've had the opportunity to also become, a leader in the team, no? In companies, and as well as in my martial arts groups, no. Ang hirap-hirap po kasi maging MMA coach, maging martial arts coach, because you have to strike the balance of being tough and being nurturing.
And compassionate at the same time.
Exactly, coach.
Correct. Tama ka dun. Oh,
Exactly. I remember, no, we were coaching this lady, and she's quite young, and there were two of us. One was the head coach, and was like the assistant coach. No, while we were coaching her, my companion kasi mas hardcore siya sa akin eh. Yung nagmumura, yung parang
Yeah, the traditional. Yeah.
yes. Parang, and abot sa point na parang ang dami na nasasabing hurtful things. So parang, ang tama, hindi mo magawa, ganyan, di ba? Yung parang, simple lang hiningi ko, di ba? O ba't ka nag-give up, di ba? Meron siyang mga bitaw na, kung ganyan ka lang din kahina, huwag na natin tuloy itong laban na to, di ba? You quit while you're ahead, di ba? And I was torn because I grew up in that kind of environment.
Yes.
Na naging iyakan kayo, di ba? Na parang, bakit ka ba natin to ginagawa? Di ba? Ang hirap-hirap naman ito. Nagbubugbugan tayo. Tapos, you're sparring with 12 guys bigger than you, takes turns, and everyone is fresh after a round. So, it's very, very draining. And I absolutely saw myself in that lady. And I told myself, paano kaya gagawin ko ngayon dito? So, instead of being that hardcore coach, I decided to be, the good company.
The other way. Yeah. Okay.
And I found out that, she was also struggling kasi broke up with her boyfriend then, was going through a lot of emotional stuff in her head. Tapos, she was also trying to prove herself that she can be an athlete in spite of her parents wanting her to finish her degree. So, marami din pinagdadaanan yung tao. And that was an awakening for me because it made me realize that hindi nag-evolve yung coaching and training.
I think that's very important.
Yes. Maybe at some point in our lives, in the past, these were the things that we grew up with because these were the only things that we knew. But as the sport evolves, as more and more literature comes out, mas marami tayong na-research.
What used to work before doesn't necessarily apply.
Exactly.
So, ang ganda ng takbo doon. Like I said, you got to the finals. I really thought you'd win. But, magaling naman din talaga yung katapat mo. That lady. The apprentice ends. You go to the next chapter. So, what got you now to the North Pole, that marathon?
Actually, Coach, nangyari yung North Pole before the apprentice.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Remember yung second time na I left the insurance company to start my own consulting. 2 weeks before my last day in the office, I had another cancer scare. So, I had this really, really bad tummy ache. Nasabi ko sa wife ko, ito na yata, the thing that we dreaded the most. And I was rushed to the hospital because hindi na ako nakakadumi. Something got stuck eh. We discovered that yung pinagdugtong na intestine nagkaroon ng adhesions. No?
Okay.
A simple way to think about it is that it's scar tissue.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And as kumakapal yun,
Adhesions.
yung pagkain nagbabara.
Hindi dumadaan.
Correct. So, they opened me up again. They did a lot of tests. Tapos, Yeah, same procedure that they did. Parang binuksan nila, then they had to check my intestines all over again. But this time, hindi pinutol. Then I had to again recover. Sabi ko sa wife ko, labo na to 2 weeks before my last day, I get sick. Buti kinover they covered everything. Yeah, they covered everything. I'm very, very grateful to that company. And I told my wife, you know what? Panibagong challenge na naman to. So 3 months after, I did a triathlon. So I was already doing triathlon.
Pumasok sa isip mo at inisip na.
Well, sabi ko nga, coach, I don't want people to think that, just because you're
and you don't want to be the traditional prototypical cancer patient.
Yes. And then I owe it to myself also to get better. Of course, recovery is primary, di ba? Recovery. Tapos, when I did the triathlons, I was doing consulting that time, di ba? I got a call from one of my former bosses. Sabi, it was close to Christmas. Calls me out of the blue. Sabi sa akin, Louie, hey, how are you? Like, I'm good, boss. What's up? Sabi, you want to do something crazy? Sabi ko, what do you have in mind? Sabi niya, you want to run the North Pole? And I was like, I was floored. Sabi ko, coach, are you serious? What the hell are you talking about? Sabi, I want you to consider it. Run the North Pole. We're in the process of deciding certain candidates. So you're going to go through this committee. And once you're screened, we're going to sponsor you to run the North Pole. And noong time na yun, coach, I already signed up to do my very first full distance triathlon. Okay, that was happening in June. The North Pole Marathon was in April.
Okay.
So 2 months after, I was going to do my full distance triathlon. A full distance triathlon is, I think, almost 4 kilometers of swimming, 180 kilometers of running, of biking, and 42 kilometers of running in one day, right? Sabi ko sa wife ko, paano kaya ako magta-train nito? No? So sabi ko, sige, let's focus on the North Pole Marathon. So I did. No? Sabi sa akin, when I was finally selected to run the North Pole Marathon, the first thing that they told me is that, Louie, we're creating this environment for you where you can run around. Kala ko naman malaking environment, coach. Siguro yung place is about half of this whole room, or siguro it's about half of this or 3/4 of this. They created an environment inside the blast freezer, where they store usually mga meat.
Yeah, para North Pole natin malamig.
And it went to as much as below 26 degrees.
Wow.
But the North Pole, -40, -50. So double pa rin. So
plus may wind.
May wind factor pa. So that was the first thing they told me. The second thing they told me, like, we got you. We've gotten in touch with what do you call this? Romy Garduce is going to teach you about the Arctic clothing, polar. So we did. Sabi niya, Louie, ganito kasi yan. 3 layers. I'll teach you how to pee also, because peeing is a real thing. And when you go into these environments, and if you lose your glove, basically you're gonna freeze and all that. So ang dami yung tinuro sa akin about the tech, no? Na parang sabi ko, hindi pala ganun kadali. Because coach, tatakbo ka sa North Pole, and normally, diba, when you exert a lot of effort, you sweat.
Pawis, yeah.
Pawis. Yun ang kalaban. Pag nasa Arctic environment ka, extreme cold environments, and you start sweating, your sweat will freeze. And that's going to be the one that's going to, kill you. Because you start freezing, your temperature drops, you get hypothermia. And suddenly,
So, paano? So, you cannot sweat? Hindi kayo pwede
it's a balance, no? You have to balance it na parang pwede kang pagpawisan, pero hindi ka pwedeng todong pawis na pawis.
So, paano mababasat siya?
So, the good thing about the North Pole Marathon is that they do it in Camp Barneo, no, in the North Pole. So it's a Russian military science outpost, because nobody really owns the North Pole, but the Russians, I think, were there.
So sabi mo, ilan ang tao doon? How many, ano yung population? 2,000?
So there's a town before the North.
Yeah.
That's the last town in Norway. It's called Svalbard.
Okay.
Expedition. Ang ganda ng lugar, expedition site siya. There are about 2,000 people there. No?
Eh, yung polar bears.
Times 3. In our 6,000 the whole area, di ba? And may mapapadpad na lang doon. You wouldn't know. Interesting that area, no? Svalbard. They have a huge Pinoy population.
Ah?
Yes. The first day that I arrived in Svalbard, so because a jump-off point is, I think Tromsø or Oslo.
Tromsø, yeah.
And you,
Tromsø, yeah.
beautiful place, di ba? So, babagsak ka ngayon sa Svalbard from Tromsø or Oslo. I forget now. But once I arrived, once I got there, and the Filipinos found me because we were shopping and there's only one grocery area. And ako sa loob, tapos minumukhaan ako. And you'd recognize a Filipino naman, di ba? So nagtagalog na sila, nagbisaya, and nag-Ilocana because I've lived in these areas. Sabi ko, uy, kabayan. That day, I arrived there, they invited me to a birthday party. So, ako na araw ko pa lang doon, coach. Nakiki-birthday na ako. They invited me to a birthday party. I got to know the families in that area. And I think there are about siguro a little less than siguro mga 80 Filipinos in that area. Amazing. Filipinos are everywhere.
So, mabalik tayo dun sa balance. So, how do you balance the sweat and the...
Okay, sorry. So I got carried away. So, the course kasi in Camp Barneo is made up of 10-kilometer loops. No? So, ginawa nila 10.5 para eksaktong 42 kilometers. That tent is heated by kerosene because kerosene does not freeze, or jet fuel for that matter. When you start sweating, your change of clothes are there, so you can prepare shoes and whatever. That's why I'm saying it's a delicate balance because you want to run as far as you can without sweating so much, so that you don't need to change a lot.
Okay.
The good part about this North Pole marathons, there's no cutoff period. So if it takes you like 24 hours, it's up to you.
Okay. Basta tapusin mo.
Basta matapos mo. I was targeting 6 hours that time, but I honestly finished it at 11 because nagka-aberya ako eh. My shoes started failing. Na-trap yung sweat. And sapatos, coach. And I would not have been able to finish that if it were for my teammate, who lent me his shoes. Kasi yung shoes niya had a different technology that does not make your feet sweat as much. Very interesting. Ang galing. And you can get disoriented because they hold this competition during the midnight sun periods. No, it's when the sun does not set in the Arctic region. The sun is nasa taas lang siya, and the world kasi spins on that axis. No, you get disoriented kasi unlike the normal day, nakikita mo yung rise and sunrise and sunset, diba? Dito hindi mo makikita. So you just see the sun like moving from one area to another. Everything is white because of the snow.
Correct.
Tapos the sky is so blue na parang white, blue, parang ganun lang eh. And the course initially had flags, but because of the wind and nawawala, diba? The course itself is also challenging because there are areas wherein slippery ice, then there's like knee-deep snow, so you don't know what the terrain is like. Changing weather conditions.
People tell me they run at reactor. Sinasabi ko kung nasisira ka na ba ng ulo? Ikaw, ginawa mo pa yung marathon sa North Pole pa sa lahat ng...
Yeah.
So for you, it was just really a form of challenging yourself to prove to yourself and also to, para hindi ka, alam natin, para hindi ka kaawaan ng mga tao, but what did you get out of it when it ended? One
of the most important lessons that I've learned in life is that for me to lead people, I have to lead myself, right? And one of the foundations of being a strong leader is being a resilient leader. Yun yung, I think, if I can say it, that's what my differentiator is.
I always ask my guests, what is your superpower? So that's your answer. Your superpower is your resilience.
That's it, coach. And I put myself in situations when I can have voluntary hardship.
So that's how you develop your resilience.
Yes, sir.
So to our audience, to our listeners, that's a very practical way to. We hear that all the time. We need resilience. Okay, how do you? But the question is, okay, how do you do it? It's all about the how to. So for Louie, he really puts himself in situations where what you have voluntary hardship. Yeah. To be able to develop that resilience. So that's an excellent point, and I hope you all take note of that. Yeah.
Sa akin kasi, coach, because intense yung mga experiences ko, no? Ang ginagawa ko, intense din yung recovery and yung challenges na tinitikon ko. Of course, voluntary hardship can be as simple as taking the stairs instead of taking the lift.
Instead of the elevator. Yeah.
It's very simple. But in my case kasi, since I went through so much, and when I was younger, I thought na sinayang ko yung a lot of my time. So parang ngayon nakakompress siya. So I tried to do as much as I can within the short span of time that I have in this world. That's at least how I see it. Diba? Always having that mindset that, so what if tomorrow ganito mangyari? What's the worst thing that can happen? Okay, if that's the worst thing that can happen, then what's the best thing that I can do? Then I will now do all of these things to make the most out of my limited time in this world.
Again, so that you do not live a life of regret.
Yes, that's correct.
So, through all these things, dami na natin na pag-usapan. More than 1 hour na tayo.
Okay, so here,
grabe. It's perfectly fine. What are the top 3 things you've learned from all the adversity you've gone through that you can share with our audience? Mapupulutan talaga nila ng practical na aral.
Oh, thank you so much, Coach, for this very, very, I would say, purposeful question. Yung first thing that I encourage people to do is be accountable. No? And that accountability only comes out if you have self-awareness. Something that you've been discussing in a lot of your podcasts. It's a recurring theme, I noticed, no? So once you are able to develop that self-awareness, you have to be mindful of your action, your thoughts, words, and actions.
So this came from all of the adversity that you've gone through. Dahil sa nadaanan mo na realize mo how important that self-awareness is. Okay.
Dati kasi, Coach, sinisisi ko yung mundo, you know, because of the things that are happening to me. My parents, you know, my teachers, lahat na, pati yung aso, lahat na sinisi ko, di ba?
Lahat na lang. What a great point, yes.
So now, if I'm accountable for myself, my thoughts, words, and actions, I only have myself to blame, right?
Great.
And that accountability, once you realize that, will now move you into the next step.
Number 2.
Yes, the second step. So once you're accountable, second thing is that you have to be willing and able. No? And when I say be willing and able, when you take on the things that you want to accomplish, the goals, kailangan wholeheartedly na ginagawa mo, intentionally mong ginagawa. And you
Be half-hearted.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
And you also have to be very capable in doing them. No, I call it the hearts and the smarts. No, once you take on a goal, a project, you have to be sure that you're 100% invested in it. It's like punching. If I wanna punch my opponent, I have to be committed to it. Otherwise,
Hindi pwedeng. Mahina yun. Now, mauunahan ka pa. Oh,
correct. Now, if you commit and you make a mistake, then again, babalik ka to one, accountability.
It's your fault.
It's your fault. Diba? But then again, even if you are willing, diba, you're committed, you're intentional about it, you also have to say, kaya mo ba yung gusto mong gawin? Diba? Not everyone can be a basketball player.
Yeah.
Nasabihin mo, puso ako.
Mas gano'n ka gusto ko.
Diba, Coach? Kung wala kang skill set, let's face it, kung wala ka ring height.
Kung wala kang height.
Diba? Di talaga pwede. So you have to be able to do the things that you want to achieve. Diba? So these two things are very, very important. So be willing and be able to do the things that you are set, that you want to do. And finally, I always go back to this, and I mentioned earlier, diba? Yung voluntary hardship. I noticed that, because when I was teaching as well, no, I noticed a lot of the younger generation now, my students, you give them something, tapos you have this feedback, a lot of them would get really hurt, no, emotionally hurt, mentally, siguro nadidiscourage sila over some feedback for on their project or their paper.
Napakaliit na bagay.
Well, again,
For
diba?
others, but for them, malaking bagay.
Yes, sir. And I try to be mindful about it, right? Na baka may pinagdadaanan yung bata, baka iba experience niya. Then I realized that a lot of the kids nowadays, especially the kids nowadays, they don't go through the hardship of, they toughening them up. Not necessarily one time, big time, but yung small steps to toughen them up. And up to the point wherein sila na mismo, yung naghahanap nito. Hey, maybe I should challenge myself to learn this new, let's say, program.
And what was your term kanina? Mental callous?
Yeah, the callous yun.
Yeah.
Exactly, diba?
Yeah.
So, when people get frustrated, they don't do anything about it, right? And this goes into that statement that I mentioned, which I also got from my CEO. Frustration is inspiration. Eh?
Yes.
Whether you're inspired, whether you're frustrated, these things should move you into action. And for me, if you practice voluntary hardship, you will now start to see frustration as a fuel towards moving you into that action. Diba? Okay, I failed. Ang gagawin ko? Step back. Okay, ang gagawin ko? Always moving into action. End of day, that's what counts. Because we are measured by our actions. Eh? No matter what we say,
Yep.
we're always measured by our actions, by our output, by the value we bring.
Very well said. We should end it right there. Wala na ako maidadagdag doon because we put it together in such a great manner, and all my job is here now is to synthesize it and just to repeat it. So number one, take accountability. Instead of blaming everybody else, including your dog, take accountability. What did I do wrong? Number two, be willing and able. Figure out, okay, if I take accountability, after that, what can I do now? And what do I need to do? Yeah, if there's something I don't know, what do I need to do to get there? And then finally, just to build that resilience, find manners or means for voluntary hardship. But most importantly, remember that frustration is inspiration. God knows how inspired I am now sa daming frustration na pinagdadaanan natin sa buhay natin. But I think that was very well said. And I always say this, and I mentioned it in our event, right? You can read all the books, you can attend all the sessions and watch all the videos, but nothing quite compares to learning it from someone who's actually gone through the experience. And Louie here, battling cancer, recovering from cancer, doing the North Pole Marathon, battling the best in the world or in Southeast Asia, in a show like The Apprentice. He's gone through it, he's lived through it, and most importantly, he is thriving through it. Last question, what are you looking forward to now? After going through all that, I don't know, what are you looking forward to now?
Well, personally, I also want to become a father again. So I hope that, because all of these achievements should be for something or someone, right? Of course, my wife is very supportive.
So you're working towards that.
I'm working towards that. That's the number one. Second is that after The Apprentice, so I am rebuilding the startups that I've invested in. At the same time, I also am employed. But I'm learning from this entrepreneur who is my client now. So I work for a delegation company wherein I'm partnered with a real estate CEO. So he's a entrepreneur. At the same time, I'm completing 2 degrees right now. 2 master's degrees, pinagsabay ko na siya.
Great.
Because these things are going to go into my businesses. So I'm trying to also specialize in data analytics down the line. And hopefully be able to get my PhD very soon, an application that I'm looking forward to, and teach and share the knowledge.
Very last piece, our advocacy here is fitness and health. My formula for being a future fit leader, the foundation of all great leadership, I always say, is health. because how can you lead if you're not? How can you lead if you're always on sick bay, right?
Yes, sir.
Just
100%.
Of course, now you're no longer training for a marathon, but right now on a regular, what's your daily routine? What's your regular fitness regimen?
Since-
Every day, pagising mo, anong ginagawa?
Yes, sir. So because I have so many things that are packed in my schedule, I allow myself at least 30 to 45 minutes of activity. So since I cannot bike long or run long now, I keep I skip rope. That's first.
Okay, so that's one.
That's one. Second, I shadow box. So I have a routine for boxing. And third, I did invest in my own home gym. So
Okay.
so those three things I do on a regular basis almost every day.
How's your diet, your nutrition, and how's your sleep?
My sleep is a bit different, coach, because I get an average now about 4 hours of sleep in a day.
So you know that kulang yun.
Kulang na kulang
Yes.
po yung coach. I don't encourage people to do it.
Okay.
But because it's the nature of my work plus the other extracurricular things that I'm doing. So binabawi ko po yun sa weekends.
Okay.
What I do try to have is good nutrition.
Yes.
No? So my diet, and depends really on what you're trying to achieve, but my diet is very high on protein.
Okay.
And I would say that the second largest portions would be are carbohydrates. No, so the reason for that is because as we grew older, yung muscle kasi natin, hindi na siya ganun ka. Let's just say hindi mo nare-retain yung I guess yung muscle density mo or whatnot. So that's where the protein comes in. And because I do a lot of activities, both mentally and physically, that's where the carbs come in as well. So it's fuel for me, because for long distance or for endurance athletes, it's very, very important. Yeah.
Heard it from him, a guy who is a mixed martial arts athlete, a guy who has run the North Pole Marathon. How important it is to take care of our fitness and to make sure that you have a daily routine. Thank you very much, Louie. We learned so much. Very full-packed podcast. And like I said, we should feel very grateful that we heard the story of Mr. Louie Sangalang, a person who truly is a man in the arena. He's gone through the adversity, he's beaten it, and now he is thriving in spite of and after going through all of that in his life. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing more and having more learning as we move forward in our coaching chronicles, the men and women in the arena.